Well, good evening everyone. It's Tuesday evening and that means that it's time for Second Thoughts. And this is a moment in the week when we go back to the passage we reflected on at the weekend and explore another aspect of it. If you were with us on Sunday, you'll remember that we were thinking about the end of Mark 2 and beginning of Mark 3, two stories which are an example of the very life-giving attitude Jesus had to the Sabbath, the day of rest, and how that contrasted with the approach of his opponents. So I've been thinking about these verses in light of what we talked about in the foyer on Sunday, but in light as well of other words which we find in the Old Testament, words of God which are given to the Jewish people through the prophet Isaiah. And we find them near the end of Isaiah 58. So let me read them to you now. If you keep your feet from breaking the Sabbath and from doing as you please on my holy day, if you call the Sabbath a delight and the Lord's holy day honourable, and if you honour it by not going your own way and not doing as you please or speaking idle words, then you will find your joy in the Lord, and I will cause you to ride in triumph on the heights of the land and to feast on the inheritance of your father Jacob, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. And it's a little phrase which we find near the beginning of this Isaiah reading, which has been on my mind. Those words about calling the Sabbath a delight. When you think about it, there is something quite special about this word delight. It conjures up the vision of people who are finding a joy in this one day which God has set aside for them. There's no sense of this day being a chore or a demand or imposition which God is placing on them. Instead, there is a gladness and a joy and a sense of stepping into something which is really good and receiving as a gift what God is holding out to them. And that verse got me thinking again about the picture we have of Jesus and his disciples in Mark 2. It's a Sabbath, and Mark tells us that Jesus was going through the grain fields, and as his disciples walked along, they began to pick some heads of grain. I'm left with the impression in that story of Jesus, and he's out with his friends in a relaxed and carefree way, and they're just hanging out with each other. There doesn't seem to be any other agenda in what they're doing besides just spending time, being in each other's company, being unhurried. They're calling the Sabbath a delight. Now, if you were in the foyer on Sunday, some of you might remember that I was asked the question of any practical tips I had to offer for people who might find it hard to truly rest on a Sunday. And I mentioned some words which I come across in a book, Sacred Rhythms, by Ruth Haley Barton. One of the best books I could recommend on the whole subject of spiritual disciplines. I went back and I found the quote. And let me read it to you. Ruth Haley Barton says this: "The only way to even begin the first halting steps towards a true Sabbath practice is to let yourself fall in love with the day so that you long for it as you would a lover. But to fall in love with it, you have to try it." Now, those are very evocative words, but I think she's on to something. I also mentioned on Sunday my experience of growing up and how it often felt as if Sunday was a day that was defined as being all about what you couldn't do. You couldn't play or watch football, and you other friends who weren't allowed to watch TV. I've had other friends from SPC get in touch with me over the last week. They've shared similar experiences of the stuff that they weren't allowed to do on a Sunday. But if the Sabbath, if this day is all about constraints and restrictions and a list of don'ts, we're never going to experience it as something life-giving. And and yet we need to recognise that this is about far more than getting away from an approach to religion which is along the lines of how we see the Pharisees behaving. A suspicion that someone somewhere might be relaxing and enjoying themselves in some way that steps beyond the parameters of what we've deemed acceptable. It's also to do with what we want, what we desire, what we think of as being the best life, the best things to do, the best that God holds out to us. If what really gives us pleasure deep down, if what we want more than anything else is something like shopping, being able to buy and acquire new and shiny things, then we will experience Sunday as a drag. If we're left thinking, I can't go to the shops today. If our purpose in life is just to get ahead as much as possible in our workplace, then we won't welcome Sunday, because we might feel instead that God is somehow holding us back and slowing us down from getting to where we want to be as quickly as possible. He's preventing us from being productive. But if our desires are somehow recalibrated, if what we really see as being the best way of life is centered around being with God, being able to slow down enough to feel properly present to him and present to the people around us, if reading his word and going deeper in it is something we enjoy instead of a daily task we rush through, if being with our brothers and sisters is a thing we long to do because it really does feel like being with family, and worshipping him really feels like homecoming, then we'll start to think of Sunday in a different way. One of my favourite bits of moral advice is one which I'm sure you'll have heard before. They're words which were spoken many, many years ago by one of the great leaders of the early church, Augustine, and he famously said this: love God and do what you like. Now, I often think that what he said that can be misunderstood. I don't think we find there's some kind of license for us to just do whatever we please. I don't think Augustine was a sort of libertarian who felt we should all just please ourselves and forget about obligations to anyone else. I think he's talking about a way of living and thinking where all our desires are formed and shaped by God, where we love him, where we are shaped by his love, so that what we really long for, what we dream of, what we imagine to be the best possible life for us is a life lived along his lines, where our desires and our longings are pulling us upwards towards God. If we have a vision of life which is about earning lots, travelling lots, basically being free to live on our terms, to define ourselves as we want, then of course anything which we feel is putting boundaries or limits on us will be something we push back on. But if our love and our desires are God-shaped desires, and desires which have been informed by his best for us, love is going to mean that the orientation of our hearts is towards him. It's going to mean that what we desire points towards him all the time, like a compass, always defaults to pointing north. What delights us, doing what we like, is going to be stepping into his will for us, and not just the particular calls he has for us as individuals, but just the way of life which is kingdom shaped, which is about love for God, love for neighbour. If we delight in these things, we'll call the Sabbath a delight. We'll love Sunday. We'll look forward to Sunday. Just anticipating Sunday with a sense of excitement will come to feel natural to us. Love God and do what you like. Delight in God and you'll delight in the Sabbath. Time's almost gone, but before we finish, can I say a prayer for you and just tie together all of these reflections? Loving God, we think again about the vision you first held out to your people through Isaiah, your invitation to us, seeing the Sabbath as a day of joy, a thing of delight. May it be so for us on that one day in 7, and may it be that that is just one of the means by which we're changed and renewed by you. All of our desires are reshaped and renewed. Our vision for the good life every other day of the week becomes more and more centered on you. That we love you. And doing what we like is all about what you like and all about delighting in you and living lives that cause you to delight in us. Amen. Friends, bye for now. I'll see you soon. Pray that you be blessed and that you'd stay safe.